So today, as you might have guessed, we are talking about mercy. And I'm not talking about Mercy, my daughter, because sometimes whenever we talk about mercy in church, she thinks that we're talking about her. So this is not about my daughter. This is about mercy. And we're looking at the parable in Matthew and also the beatitude, "Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy." So in Matthew, the Gospels that we read are pretty severe. They can be pretty hard to hear sometimes. Often the parables in Matthew's can be called sorting parables. So this means that they sort of sort out those who are bad and those who aren't. And while I like to push against the concept of some kind of point system, some kind of morality system that we need to earn a certain amount of good points, I do think Matthew proves that it does matter if we have a willingness to attempt to love others the best that we can. So mercy is something that we've talked about quite a bit in our recent history. The sermon about mercy that was literally heard around the world, that was preached by Bishop Buddy, is something that we've talked about. And when I heard this sermon, a question that I asked is, what exactly is mercy? And when you are asking for mercy, what are you asking for? So I did what any good millennial would do. I went to dictionary.com and I'll read to you the definition of mercy. So compassion or forbearance shown especially to an offender or to one subject to one's power. Also, lenient or compassionate treatment. It can mean imprisonment rather than death imposed as for first-degree murder. It can mean a blessing that is an act of divine favor or compassion. It can be a fortunate circumstance. It can be a compassionate treatment of those in distress. So in reading through all of these things, when we think about mercy, what is important for us to think about is the person who we're asking mercy from is in a position of power or authority. A person cannot offer mercy to someone unless there is this perceived authority or power. So if we ask mercy from a king, it's because we see that the king has power and could potentially make our lives better. If we ask mercy from God, it's because we believe God has power and God can make our lives better. Now, if we ask mercy from a potato, that wouldn't work because I don't think anybody perceives that a potato has power over them. In our parable today, it's clear that this was written using hyperbole. And our first indication of that is the amount of money that the servant owes the king. So the servant owes the king 10,000 talents. And in this story, it's not that the talents are good things that you can do, it is actually a currency. So let's go down a little bit of a rabbit trail and see how much that's actually worth in today's world. 10,000 talents is worth 6,000 denarii. Now, 6,000 denarii is worth roughly 1 day's labor. So that would roughly be $50 back then. So this would mean that this servant owed the king 60 million denarii or $3 trillion. So we can see that this is a story. It's hyperbole. It's not something that we should take literally. That debt would have never gotten to be as large as it was. I mean, if we really think about it, that debt probably would have been enough to buy an entire nation. So this reminds me of when me and my kids get into I love you wars. Have you ever seen or heard of this when say, I love you, no, I love you more? And we do that most nights, honestly. So I would tell my kids, I love you. They'd say, no, I love you more. And then they would shoot back, well, I love you dinosaur much. So then I would shoot back, well, I love you T-Rex much, because T-Rex is the biggest dinosaur. And then Gideon would say, well, I love you robot T-Rex much. And I knew that he beat me at that point. So nobody can really love someone T-Rex much. But I know that Gideon, when he said this, was saying that he loved me in an indescribable amount. He loved me as much as he possibly could. So when thinking of this $3 trillion amount, I think what it's saying is that the debt was indescribable. It was so large that it could never, ever be paid back. Now, when this servant was forgiven that incredible amount, another servant who owed that servant $5,000, we'll skip the math part this time. So he owed $5,000 to this servant who just received forgiveness for $3 trillion. And he asked for forgiveness. He asked for mercy. Now, a good point of reference here is $5,000 is about 3 months' rent in today's market. So that's something that we can understand a whole lot more. It's still a fair sum of money, but it's something that is doable, that's possible. Yet this servant who just received an incredible amount of forgiveness, an incredible amount of mercy, was not able to reflect this act that he received. He was not able to reflect this mercy that he just experienced. So when we think of mercy, a question we might ask is, who should we act mercifully towards? Who should receive our mercy? And what happens if we do forgive a debt? If we do act in mercy, and that person takes advantage of us? What happens if they take for granted this incredible act of love and mercy? So, to speak to that, I have a story about a snake. And if you're squeamish about snakes, I apologize. But here it goes. There was a man who saw a snake being burned to death, and he decided that he wanted to take that snake out of the fire to save its life. When he grabbed the snake, it bit him, causing excruciating pain. So the man dropped the snake, and the reptile fell back into the fire. Now the man panicked, and once again bent down and grabbed the snake, and once again the snake bit him and caused excruciating pain, and he dropped the snake back into the fire. Then the man looked around, he saw that there was a metal pole, he grabbed the metal pole, and then he stuck it in the fire and was able to fish the snake out, and the snake's life was spared. Now there was another man who was walking by and went up to this man and said, "That snake bit you. Why are you still trying to save it?" The man replied, "The nature of the snake is to bite. But that's not going to change my nature, which is to help. Do not change your nature simply because someone harms you." So this story is a story that I've shared a couple times over the years, and it really resonates with me because I think it conveys this simple truth. It's a lesson that we hear time and time again. It's that our hardships should fuel our compassion and give us a desire to eliminate those hardships or the pain that we feel because of those hardships, because we don't want others to feel that pain. And if pain is indeed circular, the only way to break that cycle of pain would be an act of mercy. So I've talked to a couple teachers over the years, friends of mine, and they would often tell me of how frustrated they would get when institutional changes were made, even if those changes were for the betterment of the students and for incoming teachers. Now, it's not that their frustration was that the change was happening. It's that often a sentiment came with it when it was being proposed. And that sentiment was, well, we've always done it that way, so you should do it that way too. I've also talked to a couple nurses. In fact, I'm married to one. And they've also experienced this resistance, this sentiment, this idea that when a change comes that might be generous to incoming employees and it wouldn't affect patient care at all, the idea is, well, you've always done it this way and I've had to go through this, so you should have to go through it too. I myself, in my ordination journey, experienced a similar sentiment. The committee that was tasked with giving me the requirements from the Book of Order to tell me what I must do to become ordained. And over the years in the Book of Order, they've made the requirements more open, more flexible. They've changed them with the times. So there is some discernment in that process. So I remember asking, what must I do? And I heard that same sentiment. It was 30 years ago, this is what I had to do, so this is what you should have to do too. We can also see this idea in parenting. Philosophies of parenting change quickly. I mean, whether it's free-range parenting, gentle parenting, rub some dirt on it parenting, the no technology parenting, or the Kindles and McDonald's parenting. For me, I combined all these philosophies together to make the best kind of parenting. But when a child is struggling and someone quickly inserts, if they would just do this, that can be hard. And I wonder if a more merciful response would be, I see that you're doing the best that you can. How can I help? When we find that vocationally, relationally, or within our family, we are in a position of influence, or we have some kind of power, how will we choose to act? It seems each of my sermons over the weeks have been getting this Spider-Man treatment, because when I came to this point, it reminded me of the words of Uncle Ben. Uncle Ben told Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. When we fully realize and embrace all the mercies granted to us, it is our responsibility to continue to be as merciful as we possibly can. If we have experienced poor leadership or systems that only benefited those in power, may we be courageous enough when we find ourselves in a position to do so, to change those systems, to let mercy flow. Just as the servant who owed $3 trillion was indeed still a servant, when he experienced mercy that was supposed to be transformational, it was supposed to cause this reversal. Normally it was everybody serving the king, but yet the king's act of mercy was supposed to come down so everyone would be served. In church, we are given a community that aspires to act in love and mercy to all who enters the doors. Our practices and policies attempt to help all thrive. In this time of Lent, may we remember the act of mercy in Christ's death for us. He died for us so that we might truly know who he is and that there is no amount of pain that stopped him from giving us all grace and mercy. The Son of God took the hardship of the cross and turned it into love for us all. May our time in worship and in this community remind us all of the grace, love, and mercy that we have all received in this place. May we continue to practice this mercy when we are in a position to do so. And may we take on this hard and sometimes sticky work, not because we desire God's mercy, but because we have already received it and will continue to do so on this day and on every day. Amen.